Good evening and welcome to That BS Show. I'm Kimberly and this is my beautiful co-host Sara Jean, and we are coming to you live from behind the fan. Maybe I should change that intro. It feels like things have kind of settled down and the fan isn't quite so apropos to the intro there. It does feel like it's settled down, and I on some levels. And then, of course, it's amped up a gazillion. But um, maybe it's the Christmas holidays and Thanksgiving. It feels like there's kind of um, a peace in the air. Um, I guess maybe that's might be kind of weird for me to say, but I know that there's such deep talks about like World War III right now, but I don't feel that. Maybe it's because I don't watch the news, but I do see it on the computer. I just don't feel like it's gonna happen. Maybe it's because I need to believe that.
Yeah, it's also just a time where everything slows down. It's nature's slow down. Winter forces us all to take it easy, and some animals hibernate and, rest during the cold. And,
Hmm.
back before modern, food and agriculture, you would be storing away for the winter and eating all of your food reserves. And, it's just a time to reset
Yeah,
naturally. And that's kind of what it is. But I have some hope and
yeah, yeah.
that we're not going to get into World War III, with Trump coming in. I think I saw that there's an interview between Trudeau and Trump, and Trudeau just like totally kissed Trump's ass, like daddy's back in town again. You know what I mean? Like, wait till your father gets home, kind of thing. It's come home to roost. And it's like, it's just so funny because I don't remember. I'll have to go back and look, but I don't remember world leaders meeting with Biden before he took office. Nobody was going to Biden's house, and Trudeau wasn't going to Biden's house when he was president elect. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so funny that they're already just treating Trump like he is in office.
Hmm.
Why didn't Trudeau go meet with Biden? Yeah, it's just so funny. It's just so funny that it's like, daddy's back. Everybody better
Politics,
fall in line. You know what I mean? Like,
the chessboard, politics. It's just, yeah. It and
it's
oh,
funny
speaking of
though.
wintertime, it is a time of integration, and the election was a big event, and so there is a and then continuously it's still coming at everybody. I mean, that hasn't stopped. And I mentioned, I think last show when we talked that the astrological energy is that we are like barely on the on ramp for what we're getting ready to go on for the next 20 years. So enjoy this feeling.
Yeah,
Um,
Mercury's in retrograde. That's another time to slow
yeah.
down, and not rush things and not rush into things and not sign contracts and, you
Rethink,
know,
regroup, reorganize.
and hold off, bide your time a little bit
Mhm.
if you can. Don't
Mhm.
make any major decisions.
Yeah.
Just let things kind of chill, let the waters
Mhm.
come to a standing. And
Let
that does
everything
feel like that
simmer.
right now. Like
Yeah.
this week our little pre-show, we talked about like, Biden came out and, pardoned his son, and the wording was weird for anything he committed. It was like even almost any like pre-crimes. It's like it covers any crime. So if it came out that Biden like killed somebody, he would be pardoned for that. Like, it's just really weird wording that the
Yeah.
pardon that
The
was
memes are
issued for
good.
him. The memes are good, quality memes always, as I would
Yep.
expect, nothing less in clown world. Uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
and yeah, Kash Patel is FBI director. That's kind of fun.
Yeah. I
Hopefully,
saw
they're saying,
the snippets of him on a talk show, like talking about that he'd make the FBI building like a museum the first day in office.
I for
So
one would love that. There's also been talk of him actually releasing like the JFK files. That's something I think Trump wants to do for RFK. Maybe not even just the JFK files, but you know, RFK's dad, Bobby Kennedy, and that would be interesting if we finally got some answers or some truth, especially since it's been long that the CIA and stuff was kind of directly behind it, you know, so
Mhm.
that would be interesting.
Yeah. I think I have seen something about aliens, so there's that on the bingo
I
card
I
again.
think I saw that too.
We've yeah, there's, and I think that this really is a glimpse into what the next 20 years with Pluto Aquarius is going to be like. It's going to be, pivoting is going to be a very uh good thing to be able to do, because Capricorn was the structure that's a little more solid. That's the foundation. This is not. That foundation is, there is not business as usual.
Yeah, there's it's a definite shakeup, like, there's no doubt about that, just, I mean,
Mhm,
the way Trump is going in and cleaning up office and shop this time, remember before when he got elected, he was kind of scared to fire people and hire people
mhm,
because he already knew what they were gonna say. I think he tried to avoid that. He tried to hire, like, safe kind of people for cabinet positions and, you know, head of state positions and stuff like that, but this time he learned, like, that's he didn't drain the swamp, he hired the swamp, and they actually ousted him, so it was, like, to his own demise, so I think that's why, if anything, he learned this time, you
yeah.
know?
I haven't
So
followed it too
that's my
closely. I just
overview.
see stuff when it rolls in my feed. But then I see some people, are not happy with some of the picks, and there. So it's, of course, it's a mixed bag. We're still gonna have government, folks. It's not gonna be like it's. I'm very happy though. I'm very satisfied with. I feel like there is a solid libertarian pipeline to the White House. I do. I feel like there is, and wherever that lands, and that's a win as far as I'm concerned, as far as the way that I am involved with politics in that
I'm
regard.
also I'm not foolish enough to expect any type of perfection, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
nobody's perfect in certain areas, I'm sure he will fall short, and
Hmm.
that's human nature. That I mean, I
Hmm.
feel like you're a fool if you expect just every single pick to be 100. Like, we're all
Hmm.
fallible, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Some people possibly are
Oh, I think there are
salvageable,
a
I
lot
don't
of people
know.
that are people that they're somebody be still so viscerally um, uh, attached to the election outcome. And I can't say that if it was the other way around that I wouldn't still have, I it, it it was some big energy, but it didn't go that way. So
Yeah.
I,
I mean,
I'm
I don't think
I'm
any of us would act quite a fool as
no,
what the left has, like crying and screeching and "Ooh,"
no,
you know what I mean? It's
no.
like I
That's
wouldn't have that sort of reaction, but
no. I think for me it would have been more like, oh, I'm gonna have to get a little bit more serious about getting my plan together and getting a little more serious about how I do certain things and prepare for some, you know,
hard
for
times possible. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it just would have been a little different than, do I think that it would have happened overnight, Hunger Games? No, but do I think that it was on that trajectory and that life would have just looked a lot different on the chessboard? Yes, I do. And it feels aligned certainly with the truth in my soul that was not, certainly not aligned with what I know the foundation of this country and like the foundation of just my belief system to be. So, um, I was thinking about that the other day though, and I've said this before, but even back when I was back at my old house, that when Trump won the first time, um, I remember that, like, we chose fascism, and why, and a flavor of fascism, a flavor of all of I mean, oligarchy, it's all of it, but we chose that as voters. And I just remember thinking, well, if I have to be involved during this time, because I chose Ron Paul, so just to be clear, but if these are the choices, and that's the direction that it's going, I would fare better in fascism because I'm a producer, and people that would see socialism, it's a lot of people that I see is like they're happy to get a check and not have to do much at all. So I wouldn't fare well in a predominantly focused on that way of having society be. I don't think that it's going to be super fucking awesome that, and I'm going in extremes here as far as these two, that I just would fare better mentally in a system where I can produce.
Well, I mean, it's just interesting. Fascism was categorized, but it kind of was socialism still. Fascism wasn't a free market, you know what I mean? And they called it the National Socialist Party. And what is socialism at its core? It's sure there might be different branding, different motives behind it for whatever like leftist or far right
Yeah.
mode of transport, but really it's just a centralized system.
Yeah.
It's a centralized government, it's centralized banking. And in America, we are already halfway there. We do have centralized banking. We do have a controlled system too big to fail, where there's government bailouts and corporate and government coercion, and it's infiltrated all levels, especially when it comes to health and agriculture, the FDA and the World Health Organization. And um, these departments are run very
Sure.
socialistic and fascistic or whatever already, you know? So,
Well, that's why having this libertarian pipeline to it, if it's going to be, I mean, it has more chance, I suppose, on that side of, um, it's they're two sides of the same coin still. So the propaganda then more, I mean, uh, we're here amongst both sides of the propaganda,
yeah,
and
trying to be more centrist, you know, than anything.
Mhm.
I'd say right of center for myself, just right of center.
Okay.
Um, I think that, I mean, it's just funny. The fear of the leftists is like the hope of me when they're like, no, Trump is going to break everything. I'm like, good. I want him to break the machine. I want him to break all the toys. I
Mhm.
want him to be the bull in the china shop that goes
Mhm.
through and disrupts government, and especially the crony, um, controlled corporate forms of government, because
Mhm.
the federal government is basically a massive corporation. You know, like that's why fascism is called corporatism, and it is very similar to what we have right now already. And I want
Mhm.
him to go in and disrupt it. I want him to throw a wrench in the fucking
Yeah.
gears. You know, I want a
Yeah.
disruptor. I don't want business as usual. I'm sick of business as usual. I'm sick of the way Washington runs. I'm sick of the
Mhm.
way world governments run. I'm sick of the way that the police state is run. I'm sick of the surveillance state, like just all of it, that our money being worthless, us printing money at interest to
It's
who
so
takes it.
government, and I see it as like there's the true narcissist, and there's the gaslighting and the trauma bonding and the fear-based control, the whole system, the currency that if you spend dollars, we're all attached to, the Federal Reserve, and that at its core is,
I
um,
mean, that's the root of the tentacles for the most
sure,
part, you know.
sure,
Follow the money,
yeah,
if you will.
yeah, which is
So
why, yeah, that's why having that libertarian pipeline is so needed, or then I think I would really feel doom and gloom on either side. Like it would be like it really wouldn't matter. Both sides say or bird coin, same thing. Um, but and I've said before that libertarianism is a philosophy. So if it's getting in there and it's spreading, that's good. That's that's
that is
very.
good. It's even like everyone's
Mhm.
like the Elon, the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency or whatever. It's so hilarious,
Mhm.
Doge and his Dogecoin. But if Ron Paul is going to be on board with the DOGE, then I'm
Yeah,
happy to have it. You know, like our government is highly inefficient. They
yeah,
waste extreme amounts of our tax dollars that could be either going to programs for US citizens, whether that be veterans or homeless people or
yeah,
drug addicts or any number of things. So these are things that with leftists, when they freak out, I'm like, why are you so mad? If they could make the government more efficient, if they could make sure that our tax dollars are being used more efficiently instead of just massive, massive waste and laundering to
Mhm.
line their own pockets. Like, why would that ever be a bad thing? Like, we've never
You
had
know,
anybody come in and look at the efficiency of certain
yeah.
governments and bureaucracies and federal
Mhm,
bureaus and agencies
mhm.
and whatever. You know what I mean? It never ends, and they're always adding more and more government bureaucracy, and
I would like
it
to know
doesn't
the
seem to help.
percentage of people that work for those agents, like the amount of employees and how that ripples out into families. And so the fear of having that changed or getting smaller would, I'm sure bring up fear for a lot of people. And then I also think that if you've maybe something that actually, no, don't say that it surprises you, Kim, because it doesn't. And you say it, and then you always regret saying that you're surprised. That more people wouldn't by now have dug into the Federal Reserve. And I know that a lot of people have, but I'm just talking about, um, well,
I mean, believe it or not, a lot of normies have not dug into the conundrum that is the Federal Reserve and how it is not federal, and how
yeah.
we print our dollars at interest, and somebody is collecting the interest on every dollar that we print.
Mhm,
And people should be asking that, but for some reason they don't. Maybe because they don't have the time, they don't have the attention span. In their mind, it doesn't really matter. Like, what can they do about it? But
mhm,
if you're aware of it, you can at least start demanding transparency or fucking answers, and you can spread it to pretty much everyone you know that, hey, we're being controlled by central bankers, and they're really the ones that are pushing out
mhm.
all the propaganda and laws and everything to work for them and not you. You know, and
Well, and
who gains from just average Americans suffering and
mhm,
all of it being dumbed down, being sick? Isn't that the age old question? Who benefits?
mhm.
Who benefits from people being sick and constantly sick, and never getting better, never
Some
finding
of the new
cures?
statistics that I've seen, oh, sorry.
I know you're okay.
The new statistics of RFK that was putting out there and that Cassie Kelly means, like, wow,
Mm. I
we
guess
are.
he's really upped his security, because now not only is he a threat to certain governments and government agencies like the FDA, he is USDA. Now he's also a threat to these multi-conglomerate, massive fucking corporations who are billion-dollar corporations, and it would be at their best interest if he did not exist. So he kind of has a target, open target, from many different arrows, if you will, now, and all pointed at him. So he had to up his security, which I'm glad he did. But it would be tragic if his uncle, his dad, and him all got taken out by a horrible US entity, you know?
I yeah, things have gotten. I guess I don't feel like they've gotten, like, they're just gonna get stranger. You know, they really are.
Yeah.
As soon as he's in office, uh, I hope I'm like you. I hope we see it, and like with this Diddy stuff and with trafficking. That would be my. I would love to actually see something um, happen there. Have you been following the
Well,
Diddy
um,
stuff at all?
not really, but I did also see that Cash Patel wants to release the Epstein files as well. So that would be another thing he wants to release.
Yeah. Now I don't know much about him. The first interview, I just saw an interview on a excuse me, a talk show, and it was just a snippet. Have you watched, have you dug, I mean, have you followed him for a minute or?
I've known who Cash Patel is for a minute, yeah, but I've mainly just seen some clips coming out from other people, and also just like little news article headlines. So I hope there's some truth to it. I didn't really look into it, but I did see one
Yeah.
today saying that he wants to release Epstein files. So that would be another step in the P. Diddy, saga and all that.
Yeah, okay, I have admittedly gone down, and I've mentioned before, I've gone down some rabbit holes and I've found some new, um, you know, shows and stuff that are definitely covering it 24/7. So it's been, I don't know how closely you followed the Epstein case, but I kind of checked out because I was like, yeah, these women are, like I just didn't think that it was, or was it Weinstein that I'm thinking of? Anyway, both of them really. Um, I didn't follow like the behind the scenes, like I'm kind of following the city stuff. And some of these witnesses that are out talking, and I think I'd mentioned before, like you start seeing that okay, let me back up. There was reports that Diddy was calling from the jail and content creators and to get muddy the waters, with
Okay.
with his fans and following and just muddy everything up. So that has been fascinating to watch those main players in that. Um, have you ever watched Sean? Is it Sean Atwood? Watched any of his
Mm-mm.
stuff? Okay.
Mm-mm.
Well, it's it's getting picked up. I think Pierce Morgan had an interview with one of them on there, and so anyway, I've been following this backstory, and right now there's I don't know, maybe 5 players of women, a couple of them that have come forward that are telling really just heart-wrenching stories, but then you find out that it's, you know, people are getting paid in one way or another, and then the drama starts, and then the shit slinging starts, and then everybody's turning on each other, and then you don't know who's telling, like, you're just like, what? And that's exactly what it was designed to do. So that has been fascinating to watch that
Mm.
unfold. So where it'll go, I don't know. I think a couple of these girls, and it's been called out, they need mental health help before they're, telling their stories. And so that's been fascinating to watch from a mental health perspective and watching people like some of it has been a little tough for me. I got to admit, it's brought up some stuff for me that, um, just kind of, uh, it's a glimpse into, I mean, it's trauma. So it's just, it can get tough to watch. And, especially when it's about subjects of, um, such atrocious sexual abuse and abuses, and
Yeah.
I know that it goes on, and that that's uh uh I don't know that ever won't bother me. So maybe that's that I'm not callous to it. But what it does piss me off though is that, like I said before, like there'll be people that are in this to out for the money, and then nothing really gets done. That's where it's just like, okay, once again. So I said
Yeah,
all
because
that.
they get paid out and they sign an NDA or some shit like that.
Mhm.
Or they
Yeah, and
settle out of court. It's like kind of known that it's for money, you know.
yeah, I don't think that it's enough to get Diddy out though. I mean, I don't think that
Oh no, I think at this point it doesn't even matter who's muddying the water or if they're fake survivors coming out looking for a paycheck, because there are real survivors and even people like what's his name? Um Jamie Foxx or whatever, like he's saying now, like out in
Mhm.
the open, that Diddy poisoned him basically,
Yeah.
or and there's other weird, but I mean, it's just for anybody who's been paying attention, like you and I, it really wasn't surprising. Like I've known about Epstein for a very long time, admittedly, from just like listening to Alex Jones once in a while talk about
Mhm.
Epstein 5 6 years before any of this shit came out. He was every day he's talking about Epstein and Epstein's Island and what these celebrities are doing, and everyone was laughing at him, calling a conspiracy theorist, and then 5 years later, Jeffrey Epstein's getting fucking arrested and shit like that. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Or even Pizzagate. That's what I mean, like,
mm-hmm.
these things come out, and then you have people that come out and just kind of are, I just they muddy the water. They make it
Yeah,
sound
they make you
so.
sound crazy or
Yes.
whatever.
And so to watch that happen, behind the scenes, because like I said, I didn't follow it for the other cases, and not even that it was even online to follow. This has been, like, it's there. I mean, and, um, it's just,
Well, Epstein is so obscure. Yeah, sure, he was known amongst wealthy people, but he wasn't a household name the way P. Diddy is. Like,
yeah,
P.
that's
Diddy's been in
yeah,
pop culture since I was a fucking kid. When I was
yeah,
12, I remember like listening to Biggie Smalls and P. Diddy and
sure,
Tupac and,
sure,
just like Lil Kim and all these
yeah.
fucking people. And I was
Well,
12
and
years
yeah,
old,
and then Justin Bieber, all these big names are involved. I just hope that, I mean, and I will say this too. They're going hard in the paint after J-Lo in a lot of ways,
Mm-hmm.
and
And part of
so
me thinks that's low key like, I mean, I don't think Ben was happy in general, but there's been ties of Ben Affleck to CIA and shit like that. Like maybe he even saw the writing on the wall that she was going to be implicated, and he's like, I don't want to be any part of this. Like, and you're a fucking bitch, so like, I'm out, girl. Like, like,
yeah. Boy, some of the stuff that, oh, what a tangled web we weave,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
you
and
know?
Hollywood really is small when you think about it too. Like, I think about, for instance, where I live, the downtown community in Vegas, the art district, the music scene, the painters, the dancers, it is a very small community. And then I think about
Mhm.
Hollywood and how small that must fucking be, So it's like, I mean, I'm sure he did have some sort of blackmail ring going, like Epstein. That was the whole point of Epstein, was
Sure.
to get high-powered targets to do something explicit and something exploitable on camera, so they could use it against them to do their bidding. And that makes sense.
Mhm. Sure.
It's actually genius by the government. You know what I mean? These security states, these police states, to get senators and and Congress members and
Mhm.
small town politicians and celebrities, and get them all fucking caught up in something. And now
Mhm.
you can use them for their bidding, whether that be, I need you to come out and endorse this person, or I need you to sign this bill that's coming
Mhm.
through, that's being passed, and I need you to vote yes on it. So it's
It
like,
seems like they're all fucking compromised. It's just like, that's why I mean, and of course, I mean, what we'll see, there's so many people that we'll never see, and there's so many more of them that, I don't know. I My days, I know that I tend to be, um well, I'm an INFJ and Myers-Briggs, and so I'm an idealist. I mean, that I can't, even though I have had a very good dose of realism in my life, and I get that, I still have an ideal, and my ideal would be that humans would be healed of having their sacral chakra hijacked, and they would get up off their knees and break their chains and
I mean, what
claim
makes
their
me sad about
sovereignty.
all of this though is sometimes some of these people that were compromised, like, we're all weak, we're all imperfect and flawed, and we all have weaknesses that can be exploited.
Sure.
And imagine doing something, whether that be like cheating on your wife, having a moment of fucking moral weakness, and then having it being exploited against you to do the bidding. But then something happens to your soul as well, because now you're
Mhm,
already compromised. So then now
mhm.
you're getting into darker and darker shit, because at this
Yep,
point it doesn't matter. So it's just like a total. So I'm
yep,
sure some of these people that have been compromised started out wide-eyed, and you know what I
sure,
mean, but it's like, we're all
sure,
exploitable at some level. If some of my worst deeds or whatever were caught on camera and exploit, I'm sure I've done something that's exploitable throughout my life. You know what I mean? It
sure.
doesn't just mean like murdering someone or doing something to that
Mhm,
extent. It could be small
mhm,
things that you just don't want to come to the light. You don't want to hurt a certain
sure.
person. So it's like,
There's all sorts of shadowy things that we all do,
mm-hmm.
and, yeah, I mean, I suppose that's where it's claiming your sovereignty and saying, "I don't give a fuck what you have on me, you're not gonna blackmail me to do something," like, "Fuck you."
And that's when you wear your flaws kind of on your sleeve a little bit. Like
It-
that's one of the reasons why I like Mersh is he does that. You know, he's kind of a piece of shit
mhm.
sometimes, but everything that is shitty about him that he's done that people can find out, he's basically outed it himself
Yeah.
and he makes jokes about it. And you know, you wear your kind of flaws on your sleeve so nobody else can use them against you. It's a smart
Sure.
tactic, really. And also it comes to having also a sort of moral willpower to where you've never actually done anything that bad that somebody, so what, maybe you cheated on your ex sometime, that's not
Mhm.
a fatal moral flaw. Sure, a flaw of character, sure, maybe makes you weak, absolutely, but is that something, an unforgivable sin that is, you know, just say fuck it, you know, tell the truth to the one person, let it hurt them. I understand people might have families, but is it worth like literally selling your fucking soul and being an entire compromised being, you know? Like own up to some
Mhm.
of your greater flaws and mistakes and people won't have shit to use against you. And also don't do heinous things if it involves a victim, we'll say, you know,
Yeah.
like and if you're
Well, and
not
even
morally
it,
strong enough to avoid victimizing people, then like fuck you kind of. If you hurt women and children, especially sexually, and exploit them, then to be honest, I don't feel bad for you. But
yeah, yeah, it is interesting to look at kind of the world stage and see how, um, I mean, trauma is at the forefront of discussion. It's not a, it's there. And I actually had a couple that came to see me, and they're in the stages of leaving Mormonism, and so that was a very interesting conversation to have. And I didn't know how far into astrology or into my weirdo side that I should go. And I have to, and I asked right up front, I because I do use tarot. Not I don't do tarot with my with those things, but I use horse oracles and I use different oracle. So I do use outside of the box um tools, and like sound bath, and working with vibration and frequency, and of course the horses, if you're thinking it, they're feeling it. So going into all that, and the science and intuition, and I always ask, do you have any religious uh kind of parameters, because I do use outside of the box tools and stuff. And no, no. And she actually said, she goes, I want to hear it all. And I was like, okay, well, it made me think, like, this is that witch wound that, in the astrology kind of circles, that has been circling for quite some time, and with rewilding, and uh, going into that wild feminine. And um, it was pretty cool. It was, and he was, it was funny because you could tell he was there for his wife, and and I appreciated it. And so I don't know how much necessarily sunk in for him, or where he necessarily stood on it, but he was there. And he wasn't like, um I don't know, I could just see kind of, man, kind of just kind of being more of a dick about being there on an energetic level. And I didn't get that read from him at all. I felt like he was really there supporting his wife, and it's something that she wanted to do. So um, it was just kind of a interesting blend of energies, with, wanting or contemplating, discussing the possibilities of moving out of Mormonism, and being open to,
like potentially new either ideas or
well,
yeah.
because I think that there, with what I do in the science of manifestation, and working with building new neuroplasticity and somatics, and working with archetypes, it truly is going into the masculine and feminine energies that are seeking balance. And right now, especially, well, Mars is retrograding in Leo, so we have all this war energy. And then, we've got all the, even we could go hookers and strippers, and dark ops, black ops, and sex, honey pots. And these are all these archetypes that, and I've mentioned it several times, the king, the queen. Then we go into the mother and father, and we go into deep, deep woundings that, I think that a lot of people are getting to the nature of things. They're questioning things in a different way. And so for me, that was fun. That's like that is throwing me a curveball and like, okay, maybe this is happening, and just the fact that people are recognizing that they've had trauma. Oh, and another thing I was going to say is that I think that too is that what I'm
I'm just
finding.
gonna black out the camera really quick. I'm gonna take Volt to use the bathroom, but I'll still be here to talk. You just won't
Oh,
see me.
okay.
Okay.
Okay. Um,
Okay.
I forgot what I was going to say. No, I
Oh,
didn't.
we were talking about your friend, the new people you met, and they were like questioning Mormonism and possibly going to,
Oh, but also several of my past clients have been successful women that are they're recognizing that they've had trauma, but because it's not as bad as maybe somebody else's trauma, they're not. They're now finally allowing themselves to be like, okay, this actually was trauma, and I'm allowed to say that I had it. People are speaking up and not necessarily holding in that because they
yeah,
didn't come
people
from.
people minimize their trauma. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like they've learned to minimize it,
yeah.
and
And I think a lot of that happened during the Me Too, or not Me Too, but during the Black Lives Matter, when it was like, how dare if you say, well, what about white lives? Oh, you racist. Like this, it fucked with people.
it really did.
It taught people to be, well, tried to teach people to be very self-loathing and self-hating for something that they have absolutely no control over, and like are not responsible for
Yeah,
any
it's
of
just
that. They
it's
weren't
so
alive during
strange to
any of
me that
that.
that was really a whole that was a whole talking point about
Mhm,
just like you're kind of inherently evil or racist if you're white. But I'm
mhm.
like, wait, didn't we just spend a whole 30, 40, 50 years telling community that we did this to, that like that was wrong, and like you can't
Yeah.
judge people by their skin, and that doesn't make them inherently anything.
Mhm,
It's not born you, and we didn't ask to be born. It's just like all of the arguments are so silly, and it's easily broken apart. But people still believe it. I don't know, they have like guilty and internalized racism and
mhm,
internalized shame and
mhm.
self-hatred, and it's like
Yeah.
it's
Well, this is all
strange.
that's been on the media for how long? I mean, this has been, and it's like the boiling frogs, right? It's like just the slow boil.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. You go in there and it feels okay at first, and they're
Mhm.
slowly turning up the heat and the propaganda. And
And then next thing you know, we're where we're at, and it's just like, okay, we're off to the rodeo. Here we go. And I am convinced that this 20-year cycle that we're getting ready to see is, and I started feeling it. Oh, well, I guess because of the work I do with nervous system and stuff, I've been feeling it for a long time. But it does feel like I mean, know your nervous system, know the language of your nervous system, really get to know your nervous system. And if anybody is just starting this journey, if I take on a coaching client, there are three things that they have to have. And that is, the body keeps the score, and from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. And then another app that I use that's a year long, so if you only work with me for 3 months, you still have the app because you paid for it, it's a year long commitment. And so those three things. And more than ever, um, know your nervous system and really staying in that true north, in like the eye of the storm, no matter what's coming at you, and really learn because, well, if you're like me and your parents are boomers, chances are you did not learn emotional regulation.
mm-mm.
So these are just through lines, and this is we can all just be pretty much guaranteed that we're all textbook on this planet,
Yeah, I was
because
gonna say, in fact, we got in trouble if we showed our emotions or,
yeah.
had
So this is
a tantrum or something.
this is very much the common denominator: abandonment, betrayal, um, all these not learning emotional regulation, so coping mechanisms, all these things are pretty. That's what I love about being a self healer in the self healing movement. There is so much information out there, to understand your nervous system, and tools that will work for you, because there's so many out there. Play around with them, find which ones work for you. Right now, I've never once been drawn to Indian archetypes, and lately I have been listening to all sorts of Kali and Shiva, and I'm
Mm.
loving it.
Like
Uh,
Hindu archetypes.
yeah, and so maybe next week I'll go to drums or gongs or whatever. But right now, the vibration of that is really hitting me. So play around with it. But calm nervous system and knowing how to navigate is your best friend.
Yeah, especially, during this world when, I mean, for anybody, whether that be any person, any political party, like you can tell even with a lot of these reactions that these are folks who are very dysregulated and
Mhm,
um, they don't know how to regulate. They're feeling out of control. They're
mhm.
also abdicating their authority and their control to greater forces. To if somebody can control your mood and stuff, it's like you should work on that. I don't know. Sorry, Volt's trying to make a little bit.
Yeah, when you're threatening to kill people and you're like wanting to, or threatening to, have poison rings and wanting to kill a populace, and like, yeah, this is, and I actually would like to know if some of these people got 5150, because that's what it looked like to me. If you've never wondered, or if you've wondered what being 5150 is like, you're headed there.
It means
you
that you're either in danger, you're a danger to yourself or to others. That's when they
Yeah.
5150 you. If you're in, if the police arrest you at a DUI stop and you say, I want to kill myself, they will
Mhm.
5150 you instead of taking you to jail.
Sure.
But I promise you, you will wish that you just kept your mouth shut and went to jail for 24 hours in the drunk tank and
Taking
got
a fucking
released.
nap.
Yeah, they will do that. People, when cops show up to a domestic violence case and it's really, really bad, and or any sort of police standoff, if they don't get, suicide by cop
Mhm,
or whatever, it's like,
mhm,
yeah, they'll 5150 you and they ask you questions like that. Do you feel like harming yourself? Do you feel like harming others?
mhm.
So when you're talking about killing certain members of the population just because they voted differently, like
Yeah.
that's talking about hurting someone. Like
I wonder if any of them
those are
regret shaving
homicidal
their
thoughts.
head.
Those are literally homicidal thoughts though.
Sure.
Like that's not normal. Get some help. I mean, even
No.
when if Biden was or Kamala was elected, and when Biden was elected, not at no point ever was I like, I want to kill leftist, blue-haired, uh, septum pierced, fucking eyebrow piercing, weird. Like, no, that's fucking weird. Nobody thought that. All I thought is, damn, everything's about to go up. And I actually remember telling people I should have done it. I should have taken my own advice. Take right when Biden got elected and Trump was leaving office, I wanted to take pictures of the cost of bread, a gallon of gas. I wanted to take pictures of it, my electricity bill, so then I could compare it to 4 years later, and everything has gone up by every metric. So it's like,
Mhm.
I don't know. That's my idea of freaking out, though, is taking some pictures for documentation, not talking about, ending people or whatever. So,
Yeah, I wonder if any of them did get.
I mean, maybe, especially if people openly talked about harming like public officials or the president, they'll get a
Yeah,
knock. They'll get a
yeah.
knock by
I'm
the
just curious
FBI.
about that. And then I wondered if any of the women regret shaving their head, or
Ugh.
or if that being mocked had them double down and they're still wearing their blue bracelets, or if maybe some people were like, you know what, hey, I think I might have, maybe I need to have some
It's
reflection
just so
time.
weird because under any other metric at any other time, you want to fit in. You don't want to stand out or be
Mhm.
able to be pegged as somebody like that. Isn't that the whole point of like what the Nazis did to the Jews and making them wear the stars that they were easily identifiable, and that was like
Mhm.
part of their victimology. Like that's part of what made them a victim is having to be identified everywhere you go. But here these people are, they do it willingly, and it's like
Mhm. It's so strange.
it's
It's
so
so
strange, and it's
strange.
also just it's like the most low IQ shit I've ever seen in my whole life. Like they want to be victims so bad. They're like, you can see who we are, everyone,
Yeah,
everywhere. Like, please make me a victim. Like it's
yeah,
just so fucking weird. Like, why do you feel the need to draw such attention to yourself? And you are women. I'm sorry. Like that's not a smart tactic. Men can overpower you. Like by no metric would that ever be a smart thing to do if the other side truly were fascists and truly were in the streets hunting people like their fucking rhetoric claims. Would you want to be identifying yourself if you really believe that? If you really believe people were hunting you or going to hunt you or you're going to be rounded up in camps and shit, would you want to identify yourself?
mhm.
Because they don't even
Yeah,
believe it. They know nobody's coming for them. They know they're not going to be rounded up like they say. It's all
yeah,
LARPing. It's like fucking LARPing. It's
yeah.
so embarrassing.
Well,
Like,
and that's why when the subconscious is driving the car and you have epigenetic trauma and then whatever life trauma you've experienced in this life, I mean, it's it, I, it, it to me it just it has to be 100% just the subconscious driving the car. Like did you not like and like your tears and your and just the one lady that was shaving it and she couldn't get the clippers to work and I just thought, stop, you keep
you're
recording
not
your
supposed to use your husband's ball clippers, lady.
yeah,
What the hell?
stop it. Just stop it. Go, please, just go take a couple of breaths and breathe with me. And we're gonna work on responding, not reacting. Because I have
Respond
had
instead
my
of
moments
react.
of being a very reactive female, and some might have said crazy, but thankfully they are nor did I try to record them. And it actually looking back on my life, I've come to realize the importance of learning how to self-regulate and learning the importance of knowing and healing your nervous system of trauma and the effects that it can have on you. And um, I hope that they find, and I mean this truly, I mean, I have laughed and I'm guilty of that, but I do truly hope that people find healing from their trauma
I mean, I
and
have
quit
laughed too.
recording
If
it on the
anything,
fucking internet.
I'm just grateful for the content. I'm
Yeah,
grateful for
I think they should, but if you please stop. But don't stop. Because I mean,
It's like you're
um,
victimizing yourselves, ladies. Like you're making a fool of yourself. We're all laughing. Like, and no, we're not laughing with you. We're all laughing at you, and
at
it's
you.
really sad. And like, I don't want to. I just don't get it. Like, and they shave their heads in November. Like, come on, it's about to be Christmas. Your ears are going to be cold. What were you thinking? It was the wrong season to do it. Should have waited till summertime. Like, I don't.
And now all the
Now
alopecia
you're gonna have
people
to wear.
don't like
Yeah,
you. The cancer people
now
don't
you're
like
gonna have
you.
to knit yourself a beanie. Like,
Although, it is said that shunning and shaming is a good way to get people to wake the fuck up and that, maybe
kind of, yeah.
and
I mean,
laughing at.
I believe in it in a private market sense. Like, you look at like even feudalism and medieval times and stuff. There was like the stocks and the pillory and stuff, and
Yeah,
like they would
throwing
shame people
tomatoes.
regularly. I mean, usually kids who people who stole food. Sometimes you could even lose a finger or an ear or whatever. They nail your ear to the pillory or whatever. Um, and it was public. Everybody would come by and point and laugh at you, and I'm sure it was a lesson. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily know if I like that. I would not want things to go medieval again, but like a little bit of public
No.
pressure that's but you
Well, it
are
kinda
also
did, and
but you're putting yourself out on the
I was
internet.
gonna
Like
say
I'm
they put
sorry,
themselves in the stock.
they put exactly again with the putting themselves there, with the
Mhm,
victimizing themselves. Like it's
mhm,
the same thing with the identifying themselves. Like
mhm.
it's some sort of star to but they did it to themselves. Same thing, putting the content
Yeah.
online. So it's like, I'm sorry, this is the internet here. No, nobody,
Yeah.
nobody is immune to ridicule from the internet. Like,
Yeah,
sorry.
no, you are fair game,
Yeah,
and
are
it
you
is
new? Are you new
forever.
here? Are you new here?
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah,
remember my
you
first beer.
I
Like,
think
I've
some
been
yeah,
canceled for shit I've put out on the internet, and not even anything spicy. The most fucking milk toast, like
right?
bullshit. And then after that first attempt, everyone was kind of just like, damn, she really don't give a fuck. I'm like, now I really don't. And y'all unleashed the fucking monster, because now I'm mad. Like, so good luck with that. It was cute. That was really cute.
It's cute how you tried that.
It was cute how you guys tried that one time. But again, it's the internet and I wasn't immune to it. You know what I mean? So really, I
Yeah.
actually wasn't surprised. I was actually more surprised over what had happened, like what I had posted that like set the girl off to go on some fucking witch hunt. I was like, really? I was like, that? I was like, that's the most mild
Yeah.
fucking take that I have. Like, what?
Yeah. I remember one time when we were doing a show back when I was still married, and uh a guy did like a whole 1 hour expose on basically what a piece of shit I was because I had stripped. And it was a whole thing on why strippers and prostitutes and hookers, why we're just garbage, and how
How you have
women
no
that do
place
that
in free
sort of
market
thing
capitalism? How you have no
are
place in free
garbage.
market capitalism?
Well, he infiltrated the station, and he was,
Mm.
it was my first kind of like, wow, like what the fuck, that came out of nowhere. But here's the thing, and I've been talking about decriminalization of sex work for a very long time, and so stuff like that comes out of the woodwork. Now, I had just never experienced it, and I had
Newsflash: woman who believes in capitalism participated in free market capitalism.
yeah, imagine that, imagine that,
Oh,
right?
so spicy.
It's so spicy. It's a hot take. It's a hot take. Interestingly enough, um, I follow this page on Instagram called, I think it's the Hustler Diaries.
I feel like I've seen that or I follow it.
It is it is quite the fascinating follow. But today one of the girls was talking about decriminalization, so I kind of thought, okay, that might be something to kind of keep my pulse on, to see what that conversation is among sex workers. A lot of the posts that were on there, they were very upset that Trump was elected. So that, that's been, I've just been out
You
of the
know,
game for so
another thing
long
that's
though.
weird to me about that though, because I've noticed that trend of sex workers against like Trump, and I'm like, but wait a second, with that whole Stormy Daniels thing, doesn't that
Hmm.
show that like he actually participated and like he like participated in sex work, your industry? So like clearly he's not demonizing it. If so, if he did partake in like
Yeah,
a sex worker, like doesn't that mean that he kind of agrees with like that it should be decriminalized since it's something that he himself partook in? You know what I mean? Like I would be more scared of somebody like Kamala, who literally is a fucking cop
right.
and
Yeah,
has a
yeah.
background of prosecuting and also
Hmm.
throwing people in jail for minor fucking
Yeah,
crimes like child
she's not
truancy
the
when
one.
their kids are 16 and you can't control your kid, jail. Or like your kid
Yeah,
was sick in the hospital and you didn't get the note. There was weird shit that she prosecuted, and I'm like, I would be more scared of her prosecuting
yeah,
sex workers than I ever would of Trump, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, so
So
that's been kind of an interesting thing that I've started kind of keeping my, just noting to myself. There's an interview actually on this channel, Overground Railroad, of me interviewing, I believe she was a sheriff. Anyway, she supports decriminalization too. So there's an interview on this channel. I believe even our interview when you were here, when we did those, I think they're on this channel too.
oh okay, I
Um,
remember, yeah.
yeah, and so that was interesting for that to pop up, because it just, for me, decriminalization is really the only, it really does allow women some protection, instead of it always being seemingly Anyway, we've had this
Yeah,
conversation.
them being prosecuted as opposed to the John or the pimp or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and then you actually have, you actually have some protection. You can call and you know, and you can actually go after the criminals, the drug dealers, and the pimps, and yeah, there's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
many.
and it makes it so that even if you were a victim of drug trafficking, it's like you yourself might be charged or hit with some sort of prostitution charge for coming out against people who were doing mass drug trafficking, possibly even to women against their will. You know, it's like,
Yeah, it just opens up it's just so much of a different conversation than legalized still is too much shit from everybody having like making money off of it, you know, in
yeah,
a
it'll
way that's
become some weird
it's
corporate
not
thing.
really protecting. It's just continually feeds this appetite
Machine.
of this. I mean, supply and demand. There is a fucking epidemic of not just adults doing some shit, but absolute degeneracy, perversion, and unspeakable, horrendous crimes against humanity at the
Absolutely.
expense of
Women
the
and girls.
absolutely, and young boys. I mean, trafficking of humans in general, the
Yeah.
whole thing. Um, and yeah, not kind of, I truly hope that we see some deeper, what's
Change,
the word I'm
honestly, at
looking
least
for?
change or
Change
um
and deeper, holding people. I think
transparency.
transparency, but also something that I really, that something, and Christianity and Jesus, it's at its core, when it is beautiful love. Like, I get the core of it, but this turn the other cheek thing, and even in fucking doing the work I do with trauma, and there's this idea that forgiveness has to happen for healing, and I just don't fucking buy it, because there are so many things that I have really, even on my journey, questioned, and I've come to a resolve about them, but not forgiveness, because this energy, it's because it kind of the turning the blind eye and forgiving, that nobody talks about it, even not nobody, but it gets glazed over in families. Like, the truth doesn't really get talked about. And the whole, I think maybe it's not forgiveness, but the spiritual bypassing or making excuses for, there's certain behavior that absolutely should be eliminated from the gene pool.
Yeah, like the minimizing, the spiritual bypassing, the
Yes.
covering up, the
Yes.
poo-pooing. Um, I mean, in a lot of maybe pseudo-Christian and it's just like I was raised Christian, so I do know a lot about it. Like I do remember pastors were, yes, for a long time, you know, you are supposed to turn the other cheek to a certain point, but the Bible teaches that God is a wrathful God. I mean, he fucking destroyed the earth. You know what I mean? Because humans were so um sin during Sodom and Gomorrah. That was the story of Noah. Sodom and Gomorrah was um, irreparable, and the reason why it was different than other cities and cultures that ruled society was because it's like us now, right? There's no such thing as perfect. Everybody's
Mhm.
flawed. Everybody sins. But what categorized Sodom and Gomorrah is that they made sin the law. They made sin the norm. They made the child, corruption and the debauchery, like that was what was normal. And if you tried to be moral, you were fucking weird and outcast. So like that was kind of the difference that categorized it. But God is wrathful, and not just that area. There's a lot of other things that he was wrathful for, So it's like, yes, turn the other cheek, especially I think in some, personal squabbles with your neighbors, shit like that. But like unforgivable things, harming children, harming women, corruption of government at every level. Like these are things that are not forgivable, and they're also kind of I feel like certain sins and certain people who have they have certain tastes, we'll say, they can't really be rehabilitated back into society. And I
Mhm.
hate to say that, but it's kind of proven. You can't rehabilitate a serial
Mhm.
killer the same way you can't rehabilitate a serial
Mhm.
PDF file. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So it's
And
like,
but this is what I mean, that we are the biggest consumers, this country are the biggest consumers of this trafficking in children and these just atrocious crimes. And this is just an epidemic in families. So do you think that the men are just, or mainly men, are just incognito in their computers, and that they're, I mean, this is um because
I
a
think
lot of
it's
people,
most
I think there are
certainly.
a lot of people that
Mm,
suspect that shit's going on in their house and they're turning the other cheek, and they don't, maybe, and it maybe that just because they don't want to see it, but otherwise I just don't know how. And like if your husband's leaving
I
for
think
trips, or if like I can't believe that there's just this many people that just don't know we're the biggest consumers and it's this big of an epidemic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of men. I think it's a lot of young men. I think it's a lot of unmarried young men, especially the unmarried, unfamilied young men who unfortunately they don't have anything better to do with their time because they don't have a family that they're taking care of. That if you are a man and you're working 10, 12-hour shifts sometimes, to be honest,
Mhm,
you don't really have fucking time or energy to then participate in this shit when you're off. You get home from work, you're fucking exhausted, you take your boots off, your wife has dinner, you take a shower, you wake up the next morning and you do it all over again. It
mhm,
is these people who have nothing going on in their lives. They have no family, they have nobody to care about. They certainly don't care about themselves if it's the type of person that is just like eating all the icky foods and consuming all the media, like if you have a surplus of 5+ hours a day to fucking jerk it to nasty degenerate porn, and then it just degenerates you further and further. You can no longer get off to some soft
mhm,
core missionary. That's not going to
mhm,
cut it. You know what I mean? You can
mhm,
you can get off to a still magazine probably. You need visually more and more visually stimulating um,
mhm.
you know what I mean? And that's it's proven. It is a fact that that is like a slow degeneration. And when little boys, 8, 9 years old, are viewing it for the first time, having access to
Yeah.
it, by the time they're 30, they're fucking degenerate. Like,
So how many people are married and actually secretly these fucking degenerates? And I look,
there probably are some, I'm sure, especially like I don't think everything is a degenerate. Like, yeah, sure, there are men who are married and maybe their wives are menopausal and they're not having sex anymore. And I don't think it's right. But I do know for a fact that if you're a woman, like men do have needs, and if you go years without satisfying it, they most likely will look for it elsewhere or they will pay for it
So
elsewhere,
this is
you know?
that's not the kind of, like, when it's a mutually beneficial arrangement between adults. That's truly not what I'm talking about. I'm talking
Okay.
about when you're going and procuring, you know, overseas, or you're procuring stuff on the internet that is the really dark trafficking
Mhm.
stuff. And
Mhm.
and this is in children. This is epidemic. So it's not, this is the numbers that I heard. Couldn't even believe the amount of money
Yeah.
that it is. So I'm just spitballing here. This is just, this is just
Well,
me kind of.
do you ever watch Alex Rosen, like Predator Poachers or
Yeah,
whatever?
I do.
So
Yeah.
like you see the kind of people that it is. I mean, sometimes I'd say a large majority it is like this schlubby type of dude, but a lot of the times it is a dude who's like a stepdad. And you know what I mean?
Mhm,
It's like the mom has no idea. Probably because I
mhm,
mean, first of all, who's going through each other's phones? It is kind of a weird concept. Second of all, like I don't know, like I think it would be easy to hide since everything is so private on your computer. It's not like there's
mhm,
digital copies and tapes to be found
mhm.
somewhere. I mean, I'm sure maybe there are some fucking
Mhm.
freaks who are like that, but for the most part, it's all done on your little magic rectangle phone,
Yeah,
and they get to keep it secret. It's a secret side of themselves. And
yeah.
some of these dudes seem just average. Oh, I've seen Alex Rosen go up to like people's homes and like let their wife know, and it's like,
Mhm. Well, that's what I mean, like, it's just, these are questions that,
that haunt you? Yeah, because it really could be anybody,
well, and
It's
also because I have had a life that has seen that has been outside of the norm. It wasn't a just went and you kind of did things the way society and so this wouldn't be a part of your world. But when the kind of exposure I've had to the underworld and then to see it play out like this and to see things finally starting to be talked about, um, I guess I'm wondering what does it take finally for people to kind of be able to see through and finally stand up to things. And then I mean like again, I'm just kind of freeballing here. I don't really have any um even idea of how that would happen. I guess maybe I'll loop it back to I hope that stuff comes out with the Diddy stuff. I hope that or even if there's, the JFK file. I just hope that the black ops on this planet, that more light and more of it is being exposed so that humans can take their power back and do the healing work that's necessary. And because everybody's been bamboozled, all of us.
Yeah, I agree with that. It would be nice to at least just have a start, you know?
Yes.
Also just more transparency on everything if they start
Mhm,
releasing some of these closed files. And I
mhm.
mean, I think transparency is good for everyone, especially if it kind of leads to the downfall of some of these
Yeah,
more corrupt
Capricorn.
bureaucracies, these federal bureaucracies. If it would lead to some of them either being shrunken or closed completely, or maybe like being mixed in with another one, so there's not two, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
just, and also you said the type that goes for it. I feel like a lot of people who feel like they lack power for some reason, it makes them feel powerful, or for
powerful.
people who have too much power and there's nothing gets their rocks off anymore because they've done everything, they could have everything. I feel like it's those people kind of the really morally um, dead
Bankrupt.
inside, that yeah,
Mhm.
bankrupt, but they also, it's almost like it is a too much privilege. It's like a curse almost, if
Mhm.
you have money to experience everything. And I feel like what would give you joy anymore, and there are rich people who do, like, I think not every rich person is like that, obviously, but for some of them, I think that power corrupts and it corrupted them and they got too much power and
Absolutely.
they were able to weld it over people, and it it either made them crazy or it made them callous and cold and kind of sold their soul. It's just
Yeah,
stole their soul, something, to
yeah.
where they can't be empathetic and compassionate anymore. So,
I remember when I was in acting school and I really knew that I didn't want to be an actress. It's a very schizophrenic life, and I was trying to put myself back together, not not split myself more. Um, but that thinking about, writing, producing, directing, and acting, working and in the acting school I went to, the Meisner Conservatory, um, there were 4 quadrants of the brain, and so that we were working with, and so I intuitive thinking, feeling, knowing, I think, and so I remember thinking, okay, writing, producing, directing, acting, kind of putting them in those little boxes when I was doodling, and I just remember thinking, I want to be a dream maker. I have no desire to be a dream taker, and that's what I was really. I mean, LA was its own animal, um, and I hadn't found Ron Paul or anything at that point, but I can see where just the way that I was critically looking at, like, hermetics and acting as the craft and really studying building a magic persona and the art of the craft, um, that yeah, I wouldn't wanna be somebody that, uh, threw the ring back, put it that way, and that was I remember I was reading, The Mists of Avalon in acting school, and I remember having that vision of like, "No, I'll throw the ring back. I
yeah,
don't."
that's actually a very hard thing to do, and that's why in Lord of the Rings, the hobbits are kind of unique. There's that scene in Lord of the Rings when Bilbo's having a hard time letting go of it when he's like kind of taking his last journey or whatever. And, you know, he like squares up to Gandalf and he's like, "You're trying to take it for yourself." And Gandalf is like,
Mhm.
"I'm not trying to rob you," you know, and he
Mhm.
eventually lets it go. But there's a scene where he does, and it's like that
Yeah.
dun 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 dun, dun. It's like creepy
Yeah.
music. And he like
Yeah.
slowly like turns his hand and it's like, blah, and it
Yeah.
sounds like iron, like lead when it hits the floor.
Yeah.
And like, you can even tell though, because there's a part where he's like, he's a good actor and he's like, like it's almost like he felt it like a burden
Sure.
unlifted, you know,
Well,
and
I
then yeah.
remember when I told you I went through a phase where I was collecting poison rings, and this is all
Yeah.
during acting school. I'm just going, but I'm allowing myself to just explore all the craziness that was acting school and archetypes, and I was collecting poison rings, and I remember, and then I was reading this book called, I think it was the female version of like that Da Vinci Code one, and I think it was called
Mm,
The Chosen One. Anyway, and I had found this ring and it at just a little shop, I can't remember where, and it was like a green stone with 12 stars around it, and around each star there was like a little heart. And it just reminded me of like at the time, like probably Greek or Roman. It was flattened kind of a steel kind of thing.
mhm.
And the synchronicities that were happening at that time, it just and then reading the book, The Mists of Avalon, and I'm sure I'd seen maybe The Hobbit was out then, or not The Hobbit, but the Lord of the Rings. I'm sure that something like that was out during that
Mhm.
time. And just having that overwhelming sense of no, I will throw that back because I was feeling the power of Hollywood. I was, all up in that. And it's just interesting how archetypes and energies can come in and play with us, which is why knowing your nervous system. I mean, if I knew now about my nervous system, what I, know now back then, it would have been a totally different ballgame for me as studying the arts and the craft. But at the time, I I didn't a lot of times know what the fuck was happening because it was so intense that things would the way that they were showing up. I didn't quite understand, about synchronicities. I was just learning about that. And so I know that that's happening for I mean, I've even seen guys that I never would have thought would have said anything where they're like 1111, you know? Like some
You're like,
people
that's funny.
that's why I guess would it seems to me that the subconscious and this sort of connection is becoming more commonplace than it is kind of hidden in the shadows. And maybe that's, part of, I said that during, I said it before, but that the whole thing with when Q came out, that the populace is being occulted. And now how will they use it?
Yeah, that's actually that's like
Who will throw the ring back and who will run with it?
yeah, and think about it, you know, power is very alluring. It's people can
Mhm,
get drunk on it. Things can get
mhm,
out of hand before you realize it. You know, that's kind of like another allegory of Lord of the Rings, you know. It's like
mhm.
how quickly it takes you. And yeah,
Sure.
having the power to say no. Like I feel like Ron Paul is the type of person that would say no, you know, that he
Mhm.
actually wanted less power. I think he really
Sure.
understood how ultimate control, like absolute control corrupts absolutely. And we have a very
Mhm,
like absolutely corrupted form of government. And it's just weird because leftists used to recognize that, and they were one of the first people to point out how flawed and messed up our power structure is, but yet they're the ones that seemingly fighting the most to um, maintain the power structure. And maybe it's because they were finally in control and at the reins of it. But it's like that they were drunk on power. They didn't want to let it go,
mhm,
you know, and
mhm.
some of them still can't. That's why they're like shaving their
Sure.
head. And it's like, you know, that they're letting it control them still. And it's just like, I don't know, it's just weird. That would never be my reaction to something like that. And it is funny, but you're right. You kind of said it is sad. Like a part of me does feel bad for them because I'm just like, that is completely unhinged, you know?
Mhm,
And I would never abdicate my power like that to anyone, to any entity, to any government, to any
mhm.
authority structure. Like, but that's what they do. They abdicated their power during COVID. they just completely turned into little mask Nazis and
Mhm.
follow the science, little parrots and
Mhm.
mockingbird, you know, talking points. And
Mhm.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but
Well, we've talked about it before, how easily mind controllable people are. And if you're not aware of the
whew,
fucking game and you're not aware that first off, and I've said this before too, like with masonry, when I see people getting the Masons. Okay, first off, I hate to break it to not to everybody, but to like, we're built on a Mason foundation. It's not a Christian one, and part of masonry is, well, the number 33. And if we compare Christ being a master builder, a master carpenter, and 33, the compass is right in that Mason logo, and numbers, and the compass, like the precision of numbers and being a master builder. And we all have the ability to be master builders if we choose to know thyself and do the great work. And how you use that energy and those signs and symbols depends on what kind of builder you'll be. So what masterpiece do you want to build? And there are black lodges and white lodges, and there are people that join these things and they choose Slytherin, or they choose they choose the other one. I mean, these things are very real. And over in Europe, this is very much known. Over here, this is why we left in boats to come over here, is so that we would leave that behind and that you would have the freedom over here to choose whatever it is that you choose to believe. So um, we've strayed a little bit.
that's okay. Yeah, now we're on fucking Masons and shit. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's true. And, Masons actually do believe in a higher authority above themselves. They create
Hmm.
and they're so obsessed with perfection and design and building and structures because they do think that humans were a masterpiece that were like, fearfully made, basically.
Hmm.
So that's kind of why they see human design. They see a designer in the
Hmm.
human structure, so they themselves design,
Hmm.
and that's why buildings used to be so beautiful back in the day. There was this
Hmm.
like love for an ultimate creator and a
Hmm.
rejoice in creation itself. And that's why you look
Yeah.
at like old Renaissance paintings or even structures, the Sistine Chapel, um, castles, stuff like that. Everything was so intricate and
Mhm.
just beautifully detailed, and the
Yeah.
craftsmanship and the architecture. And now you
I
look at
mean,
things and
churches and
everything is,
cathedrals are, I mean,
yeah,
we
you walk
don't do
through it,
that
it's an
in.
ovum, it's an oval that you walk through as if you're walking through a womb. There's all
And you
kinds
think
of like
about
little,
the tools that they had, and like it's unbelievable.
yeah.
And
And then you look at
we could
now,
even go down some other rabbit holes that are like parts of history they say were like they're just non-existent, they just erased or they made up. Some would even say that the have said that the whole Shakespearean era was all made up. Anyway, but
yeah.
some of the
But I mean, anyways, you look at our structures now, you look at the way we build things now, even furniture, look at furniture that your grandparents owned or your great grandparents, and
yeah.
then look at some shit you get from IKEA. You know what I mean? It's just so minimalist and nothing's built to last and nothing is craftsmanship and
Mhm.
everything is mass produced and everything is the same cookie cutter fucking garbage. And it's
Mhm.
because we've been demoralized to hate ourselves, to not believe in anything greater than ourselves. We can't even see the skies in most city. You can't even see the stars. There's all these studies on people who can see the stars every night. They have a deeper connection spiritually, looking out into the vast void and wonder of the universe. And then when you live in a city like Vegas, where you can see, if you're lucky, four stars, you know what I mean? It's just like, I went last night to a hot spring and I was able to see the stars and I could see a piece of the Milky Way belt. And it
Mhm.
was just like, wow, I totally forgot. This is what humans were meant to see every single
Yeah.
day.
You
And we
need to
did
come
up
visit.
until, and we did see it every single day up until 100 years ago,
Yeah.
So
You need to come visit me, and we'll come under a full moon. We'll go out and hang out with the horses under the
I
stars or
would
do
love
something
that.
fun, soak it up.
Yeah, Sedona's like a national dark city, I think. There are some cities that protect it, like certain streetlights can't
Yeah,
be past a
we're
certain.
one of the best night skies in I I I don't know if it's the world, but definitely in the United States. We're one of the I think one of the top 3. It's pretty it is pretty.
Yeah, I definitely need to go have a chill out. Then we could do a live in person
Yeah, we
chat.
can do it on a full moon and get a little witchy with it.
That would be cool. What do you guys think,
Yeah.
huh? Any comments? Anybody say anything?
We had somebody that just they just kept saying the same thing, and I think it was just a bot. Praise for
Oh.
Emily Armstrong. Fuck the haters. I have no idea. And then nostalgia critics, The Wall versus OK Computer or Oklahoma Computer. And
Oh,
I had no idea.
okay, computer.
Yeah.
That's a
And
Radiohead album.
which one? OK
Okay,
Computer?
computer. Mm.
Oh, so is nostalgia critics The Wall versus still don't get it.
What is The Wall? Like Pink Floyd, The Wall? I don't
Well, then
know.
I was going that since you knew the other one was a song. So that was
Interesting.
that was a very
That went
interesting
right
and
over our
random.
head, guys. And I don't know who Emily Anderson is, but God bless her, whoever. I don't know.
Yeah. Praise Emily Armstrong and fuck the haters. I'm okay. Yes. Um,
I
well,
don't know her, so
yeah.
I can't speak on her character, but somebody was passionate or it was a bot. Which cool, we
Yeah.
have bots. We got bots in the chat.
Yeah. We got
Moving
a
on
bot.
up.
AI Bon. BONN.
Maybe we should leave it there and we'll see y'all next week.
Yeah, and it was good catching up, and
Yeah.
I love you, oodles and oodles and oodles. Oh, and the energy for this up until the new year is very much, again, I want to just self-care, enjoy the winter,
Just
enjoy
relax,
sleeping
everybody
in.
chill out, hibernate,
Mhm.
get some soup
Winter
and
is for
stew.
integration. Integrate, take care, learn your nervous system. Learn
And
your
to
nervous.
relax, yeah, chill out, stay
Yeah.
in more, get
Mhm.
cozy.
Get cozy. I have like 5 candles going in my room right now, and I got the heat turned up, so I can't wait. I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to go just jump into those covers
I
and
love it. I have an electric blanket that I've got. I love that thing. I'm going to turn that on.
turn that on.
Turn
All
it
right.
on. Well, you guys take
Well,
it easy, and I hope you have a good
I
night, Kim. I
love
love
you.
you,
Oh,
and
can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay. My computer, oh my God. Well, my mouse is doing it again, so I'm trying to get to the like end the stream button, and it's okay.
Mwah.
Anyway,
Good night,
everybody have
guys.
a beautiful evening, and I love you, and I'll see you next week.
See you
Bye.
next week. Bye.
Okay.